a dietitian against diets. When I first started into the field of dietetics, our goal and our job is to teach and to educate. So I took this by the head, and I knew that if I can teach you how many calories you need in a given day, or give you the best meal plan, you would take it and be successful and happy in life. Well, that's not what I heard. People kept telling me, Reshaunda, I know what to do, I just don't do it. So I will say I'm very grateful for my education and my training as a dietitian, but I see there's a missing link. Prior to becoming a dietitian, I worked in the field of genetics and received my first degree in biology with a minor in psychology. So as I call myself this evolution as a dietitian, I started intertwining nutrition, biology, wrapped with psychology. And I started to see nutrition differently. And I knew there was something else going on as to why we are fighting and why we chase diets. In my opinion, a diet at its best is a short-lived, self-restricted approach with unrealistic expectations. Now, in my private practice, I work with hundreds of people, and our conversations go beyond just knowing how many calories are in an apple or in a donut. What I find is that people fight, and they fight food their entire lives. And with this fight, they carry this emotional burden with them. I have a client, her name is Karen. She's very similar to many people that I work with, but she said one thing that stood out. She said, Reshaunda, I am uncomfortable in my own skin, and I live that way every day. So I hear that, but I know people are quick to jump to diets because they believe that they will find happiness if they just get down to a certain number or just somehow look like their high school pictures. And their hope is that they seek happiness, but unfortunately, that's not what happens. Diets reminds me of exams. When you're getting ready to take an exam, the goal is to pass. That means you dig your heels in deep, you do what's required, and your goal is to pass with the outcome. So that means if you finally lose those 20 pounds, we passed. Or if we finally got our cholesterol levels down, we passed. And then like exams, we're done, right? Well, unfortunately, you have to continue to do the same thing every day. It's quite exhausting. It's like running a marathon on Monday and then getting up again and running another marathon on Tuesday. That's how diets work. The 30-day challenge. How many of us have done a 30-day nutrition challenge? And in that challenge, we do everything we need to do to be perfect in those 30 days. And it's a challenge. So we put ourselves and we promise ourselves that we can do it. And let's say we're successful. And I commend you for those who are successful. But in the midst of those 30 days, as you're going towards the end of those 30 days, have you ever thought about day 31? Or when day 31 comes, are we relieved that we're done? Or are we anxious because we never thought about day 31, nor day 40, nor day 60, nor day 70? Or would those days fall back to where we fall back to our habits and start back to square one? That's why I don't like diets. A diet, at its best, is a short-lived, self-restricted approach with unrealistic expectations. So what I want is for people to stop putting their lives in the hands of a system or a diet that they can't wait to break, they hate that they're in it, and they can't wait till it's over. I get it. Nutrition is tough. I kind of know what I got myself into. Because when it comes to food, we cannot opt out. We have to eat. Just like everything else in our life, we have an option. We can choose to go to the gym or stay home. We can choose if we want to change the radio station if we don't like the songs. We can even choose to quit our job if we don't like our boss. Wouldn't recommend it, but we have a choice. But when it comes to food, we can't opt out. So understand is, I want people to realize that we have to make changes in our lives that's going to go for the long run. Without diets, I understand why we lean on diets. Diets gives us hope. But most of the time, we're left feeling hopeless. So, without diets, without a plan, what are we going to do? What else is next? Well, glad you asked. Relationship. Instead of dieting, and because you can't opt out of eating, you want to build a relationship with food. Not because it works, because it does, but because this relationship is actually a relationship with yourself. So you may ask, what does that relationship look like? Well, there's actually two types that I've witnessed. There's an adversarial relationship, and there's a partnership. Back to my client, Karen. When we first started working together, she had a pretty solid relationship with food. It was always there. Whenever she was happy, whenever she was sad, whenever she was angry, frustrated, bored, food was there. But in the midst of this relationship, this adversarial relationship with food, she constantly felt weak or lack of control, powerless. So I presented Karen with these nice assortment of donuts. And she had the similar expressions to the ones I see out here, but how she felt. She felt lack of control. She felt vulnerable. And this constant addiction was coming back. And she immediately called those donuts bad. She labeled the donuts bad. And then within a few days, because we felt weak, we felt powerless, Karen decided to grab 2 or 3 of those donuts. Immediately when she grabbed those donuts, this same constant cycle of negative self-talk, feeling guilty, feeling bad. So I paused for a moment. I just realized Karen labeled the donut bad. Then she called herself unconsciously bad. We unconsciously label ourselves sometimes with our food choices. So what you want to understand is not even about food. Food is a scapegoat. It's a tool that we use to not address the underlying conditions as to why we have negative self-talk, as to why we feel lack of control, as to why we feel powerless. Unknowingly, food is a reflection of how we see ourselves. Food is a mirror image of how we see ourselves. So let me tell you about the other relationship. I have a partnership with food. And this partnership is not really about what's going to change the physical image. This partnership is, nutrition is an extension of who I am. It's what represents me because I believe in what I eat as value. And so I seek value in my foods. Nutrition, not food, gives my body the ability to live at its highest capacity. Those are my lenses when I'm making my choices. So you heard me say nutrition and you heard me say food. So if you ever wonder what's the difference between nutrition and food, the next time you go to a gas station or a fast food restaurant, are you going to order food or nutrition? See, there's a distinct difference because nutrition is what gives our body the ability to live. It's what gives our body life. Food is just something we put in our mouth depending on the mood. Nutrition is intentional. Nutrition is also one of our lifelines. It's how our body lives. It's one of the 3 lifelines. For our body to thrive and to live, we need 3. That's air, that's water, and that's our nutrition. So if I were going to ask you if you had an option between where you would like to live, would you select option 1? Or would you perhaps select option 2? Now, just taking a moment, just looking at that picture is a breath of fresh air. And yes, we want fresh air. Water. If I were to ask you where would you like to get your next glass of water, would we be delighted to go underneath the city sewage and grab a nice glass? Or would we perhaps want clean, filtered water? Now, understand we prefer clean, fresh air, clean, filtered water, But when it comes to that third lifeline, why oftentimes our choices tend to look like this instead of this. Now, I look at that apple as my lifeline because I look at the nutrients that are coming out of that, which my body is able to use. I also understand that the act of grabbing that apple is the act of self-care and self-love. So every single time I'm choosing those foods, it is a constant reinforcement of how I feel about myself. And so this adversarial relationship that we have where we feel weak and vulnerable, I have actually built a partnership with nutrition that has empowered me. Similar to this platform, it has created a foundation of peace, balance, and a liberation from this emotional struggle that we've always carried. So instead of counting calories, I make every calorie count. I have a rooted reason as to why I make these choices. And my reasons is not because I want to make the scale tilt in my direction. The reason is because there's a vacation coming up in a couple of weeks, and I know I want to look good in my bikini. And the reason isn't because in the future, hopefully far, far, far in the future, I have grandchildren, and I want to be able to play with them. Those are all reasons, but they're not sustainable reasons. My sustained reason as to why I make my choice is my root, and that's me. And I have a why as to why I choose this. We all heard of the phrase, you have to have a why reason, right? Well, I choose to use why, and this is what I want to present to you. When you're considering your spouse, who you're going to marry, when you consider the best and safest place that you're going to live for your kids, you're going to choose what represents you. You're going to choose what's the best for you. So when you're choosing your foods, when it comes to why, choose what honors you. Nutrition is meant to give our body life. It's meant to deter us from diseases. It's meant to heal us, to grow us, to build us. So perhaps let your why reason be what heals you. Now, these are my why reasons, and I hope that someday you find your own. But when and if you do, remember, none of this matters until you want to. This won't be out of fear. It won't be out of force. You will embrace this new thing in what you do when it comes to your nutrition. Remember Karen? Well, Karen now makes choices no longer out of fear that the weight is going to come up or that her health will be compromised. She makes choices now out of love for herself. And because of that, her choices reflect self-care and self-love. And through this, those chains, those links of the emotional struggle has begun to unravel. So I hope that you see that diets and short-term fixes is past that. It isn't the answer. And I hope that you recognize this fight with food is really a fight with ourselves. I hope you understand why I'm a dietitian against diets. Because I believe in doing what honors me, and I do believe in to do what heals me. And I look at my nutrition as a mirror image of who I am. I look at my nutrition as my lifeline. I look at my nutrition as my lifelong partner. So my question is for you, what's stopping you and what's getting in the way? Is it perhaps not knowing where to start? Is it not really knowing or recognizing that adversarial relationship? Or is it fear of failure? Well, my answer to you, it's going to be in that moment. The moment when you decide to grab that sugary drink or that greasy burger, and you stop and you pause and you ask yourself, how am I honoring myself? How am I healing myself? So instead of letting food dictate your choices, start with building a loving relationship with yourself and let your nutrition be an extension and be a reflection of who you are. Let your nutrition represent you. And if you do, I promise you, this fight with food will be over with forever. Thank you.